Good morning. I'm Jim Spencer. I'm the Executive Director with the Bluefield, West Virginia Economic Development Authority. And today is one of our classes that we like to host in different topics to help support entrepreneurs, folks wanting to start a business, and even for businesses that want to expand. So today we're talking about a home-based business 101, and the curriculum comes from the My Own Business Institute. We'll talk a little bit about that in the future. And sometimes when you have a home-based business, it can be for extra income. It could be something that you're trying to grow that eventually it becomes your primary job. Matter of fact, I was talking to a young lady yesterday that actually had a full-time job, but her family in Wyoming County is starting a restaurant that's tied close to the ATV trail. So at some point, you'll probably transition from a full-time employee to with someone else into their own business. So, but home-based businesses are on the grow in the United States. And we're privileged today to have Harold Patterson with us, who is a Small Business Development Center business coach in the area. We've done several projects together, things like that. By the way, for the folks that are online with Zoom, if you have any questions, feel free to chat. And it will take a little bit of break, probably around lunch, for let people to grab a piece of pizza that's here, and then also to go to the restroom, and then we'll finish up. Harold?
Thanks, Jim, and thanks everybody for attending today. This is the team that we've assembled today. If you have any questions, Savannah and Faith would be more than happy to pass those along to us, like Jim said. Oops. Oh, there we go. Jim, you want to talk about Moby?
We partner with the My Own Business Institute because of COVID. Prior to COVID, we were having in-person classes, and we were averaging probably 15 to 20 attendees. And because of COVID, we didn't want to lose the momentum, so we partnered with Santa Clara University. So later on in the program, we're going to walk you through those classes. I was talking to a young lady before we started, and is interested in the food truck incubator that we're trying to set up. You could be the world's best chef. You could be the world's best plumber. You could be the best at whatever it is, and you could still fail at business, because there's a lot of other things that go into operating a business than just the goods and services that you provide. And so with the My Own Business Institute, we'll talk about that. It's free. It's self-paced. You can do it at 2 a.m. And these modules that I'll show you are fast-paced. They take 30 to 45 minutes. Matter of fact, if you take all the ones that you can see there on starting a business, you can graduate with a certificate from Santa Clara University. So you see the ones under starting a business, and then the special feature course is almost like electives, like if you went to college, of extra things that you can get into, like microfinance for entrepreneurs, managing employees, making ethical decisions, things like that. And one that I'd suggest that I found, many of our business owners are humble, and I think it's a good biblical characteristic. But when it comes to your business, you've got to tell the story about your business, because if you don't tell your story, somebody else probably will, and you may not like how they tell it. So you've got to, use an example, every parent brags on their baby, and your business is your baby. So these courses are here to help you business expansion. You can take all of them, you can take some of them, or if you opt to that you don't want to take any, that's fine too. But since we've started this, we've had 107 enrollees and 18 graduates, and actually those numbers are up a little bit recently because of the food truck incubator program.
Thanks, Jim. When we started putting this together, Jim suggested that we start looking at what are some famous companies that actually started with the home-based business or in your garage. And to my surprise, a lot of these are in our everyday lives. The one that I didn't put on here that I found kind of refreshing actually was Ben & Jerry's started in their homes, and then they grew to the nationwide company. But just think of the billions of dollars that are on that list, trillions of dollars that are on that list. It all started with a thought. It all started with some imagination in somebody's mind, and they said, I want to follow through on this. And then they took the first step and then grew it to where they are today. If you don't take that first step, which is either contact someone like Jim or myself and get started, then you're never going to grow to what those companies are at this point. And the possibilities are endless. like it says. Accounting services, billing services for medical use, personal training. A lot of people, when the COVID thing hit, they stopped going to the gyms and they started doing online personal trainings. Tutoring sessions for classes. A lot of teachers are making money on the sides by teaching English to foreign students. Photography is another big one. One of the ones that we're also going to talk about later on is the independent contractors. But anything is available to you as long as it's inside your imagination, as long as it's a concept that you have that can be developed. It's available to you. Some of the characteristics of a home-based business: you don't have very few employees to deal with, and that's a good thing sometimes. Low storage needs. A lot of times it's just one room in your house. We'll talk more about that later. But you don't have a lot of storage needs, just maybe for your files and stuff. It's based on your specialized skills. It's something that you've picked up along the way that you can enhance your income with, and you've developed it into the business. And virtual sales transactions. A lot of stuff is being done on the internet today. One of the terms that gets thrown out quite a bit now is gig economy, excuse me. The home-based business or a freelance business is a part of the gig economy. It's temporary, it's flexible. It's not something you could be stuck in for years and years and years. It could be something that's up and running for 2 or 3 years, and then you just shut it down. It's ran its course. Noteworthy down there on the bottom, it's underlined. It is possible to turn a hobby into a business. Photography is a hobby. You turn it into a business. Computer blogging was a hobby. You turned it into a business. Different things in your life that you've used can be turned into a business. Advantages and disadvantages to a home-based business. No commuting. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It says it's an advantage, but is it a good thing or a bad thing? With gas prices, yes, it could be a good thing. But you're stuck in the same place all the time. One of the things that we're going to talk about later on is having a balance between work life and home life. If you're stuck at home all the time with your business and with your home, it can get to where the walls close in on top of you. So we'll talk about more of that later on. It is an advantage, like I said, no commuting. You don't have to worry about getting out in the traffic, getting to work on time. You have to start work on time when you're working at home. Lower overhead. And we're going to talk about this, some of the expenses for running your business can be taken off on your taxes. You do have more family time. You do have more flexibility with your business. You must meet your deadlines. I always say that, but there is some flexibility when you have problems crop up, helping your family, friends, things like that. Notice on the advantages, it says family time. And over in the disadvantages, it says may interfere with family life. Advantage and disadvantage. Because there are deadlines you're going to have to meet. There are things that must be done for your business that could interfere with your family life. You may not be able to do all the things that your kids demand or your other family members demand if you have older parents and things like that. The no commuting thing, isolation over on the disadvantage side. You are isolated in your home, so it can be a disadvantage where you're not out seeing others and talking to others. Ensuring that you have the right licenses and permits. We have a slide on that just coming up here shortly. And understanding the rules of business and expenses deductions. A lot of people just jump into it. They don't consult people like us, and they don't really know what do I do about my expenses? What do I do about the tax deductions and things like that? Are you ready to do this? Priority one, ask yourself. A lot of questions here. Phone numbers for your business. Do you have a separate phone number than you do for your house? A separate email. The email address that you give out needs to be business oriented. It doesn't need to be personal oriented. Do you have a dedicated phone for the business? Smartphone. Computer, printers, just for the business, not for the kids. What about a business license? We'll talk about that shortly. What are the other permits? Is there zoning in your area that doesn't permit you to have a business? How are you going to accept payments online? Are you cyber secure? Jim did a two-part workshop on cybersecurity online, taking payments and things like that. If you want that, you can go back into his previous workshops, and find it. Do you need a tax license? Yes, you do. I can answer that real quick. Do you have a separate bank account for the business? Yes, you should. Separate credit card? Yes, you should. Have you determined your prices? How are you going to determine your prices? Someone like myself or Jim can actually help you out with that. Do you have a designated workspace? That's for tax purposes. It has to be dedicated. How are you going to do your marketing? Who's going to do your bookkeeping? Do you have logos? Do you need a partner or do you need employees? All of those questions can be answered by coming and getting help from someone like ourselves. Should you incorporate your home? Yes, and for a lot of different reasons. First of all, we're going to talk about a sole proprietorship. And you'll notice there that if you do a sole proprietorship on a home-based business, it does not separate legally your home from your business. Because if you are a sole proprietorship, you and the business are one. All the assets are yours. Likewise, all the liabilities are yours. Okay? Not separated. Notice, a judge could order that your personal assets, including your home, must be used to satisfy the obligations you incur in your business if you're a sole proprietorship. You could lose your home. You could lose your car. You could lose your retirement. You could lose the kids' college fund. You could lose a lot of things if you are a sole proprietor. If you choose to be a sole proprietor, if it's a situation that it's workable for you, I highly suggest you look into liability insurance. Okay, that will help reduce the cost and may save your home and your other assets. Notice in the second paragraph, the legal entities, which are incorporations, are separate from the homeowners and also from the shareholders. Part of the, excuse me, let me go back to that. Corporations are a legal entity unto themselves, and they are separate. They can be held accountable for the actions, and your home and your personal assets can be saved and not be judged in those actions. There's ways of doing that by structuring your corporations and also your insurance. The bottom line there. Therefore, shareholders and owners are only risking the capital that they have invested in the business. Okay, that's the biggest reason why you should incorporate your business if you're going to do it from your home. Okay, now it may be a situation that you could use a sole proprietorship. Don't recommend it, but we would have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. Another reason in a sole proprietorship, if you are trying to get credit, the credit is extended based on your personal credit rating. When they run your scores, it's going to be based on the personal credit, not the business credit. When you incorporate, you get a separate credit rating from different companies than you would for your personal credit rating. Why is that important? Because if you go to the bank and the bank looks at you from your personal credit rating, it may not meet their standards. Your business credit rating may be higher and be able to meet those standards. A lot of times, if you're slow in paying bills in your business, it's not going to affect your personal. Okay. If you're filing bankruptcy over in the business, it's not going to affect your personal. Likewise, if you're filing bankruptcy personally, it's not going to affect your business if you're incorporated. So they're totally separate. Any questions on credit? We also do a class on credit. Sure.
Rebecca asked, can you further explain business credit?
Yeah, we have also done a workshop on business credit if you want to go back and look at that. But what happens is when you incorporate your business, you're required to go out and get things like a DUNS number. And basically that's going to be your credit number, or the number that the people use to look up your credit as far as the business is concerned. The business credit is basically any leases that you're going to have through your business. If your inventory guys will give you like a net 10 or a net 30. And that means if they give you inventory, you've got 10 days to pay it and they don't charge you interest, or 30 days to pay it if they don't charge you, to not charge you interest. If they report that to people like Dun and Bradstreet and places like that, then that builds your credit score for your business. It's totally separate from your personal. Your personal is usually through TransUnion, Experian, and I forget the third one. But anyway, there's three main scores that you get your personal scores from. But usually with your business scores, it's just based on your business transactions with credit type companies.
Her second part of the question is, how is that obtained? Would you say that
it's through Dun and Bradstreet and companies like that? Okay. There's very few, I think 60 to 70 different companies for business credit scores. There's 175 for personal credit scores. And when your business is looked at, it's like I said, it's looked at because of the transactions you've made with your various peoples. And it's a pretty solid score for the most part. On the personal side, when they're looking at your personal credit, your credit score can change based on company, based on how there's 5 criteria that they look at, based how they weight that criteria. It can change based on what you're actually purchasing. If you're purchasing a car, you may have one score. If you're purchasing a house, it may be a totally separate score. So your personal credit numbers actually change a lot faster based on the company, based on what you're buying and things like that. Your business score is going to stay pretty steady. It's not going to change based on what you're trying to do.
For answering.
Okay. Let me say this. Your credit, when you're in business, that's why I said you need to get a separate bank account to keep track of the expenses and to keep track of where your money's going. You also need to get that credit card, a business credit card, because then you start building credit. You get it in the company name and you use it for company purposes. You don't use it for personal stuff. Also, raising capital. A bank is hesitant to lend money to individuals for business. It's a lot harder. Again, it's based on your credit. It's based on your personal credit. And it's kind of hard, unless they know you, to actually get a good a bank to help you with good ideas sometimes. Corporations can raise money in a lot of different ways. They can sell stock. They can take on partners. They can actually go to banks and institutes with, and borrow money a whole lot easier, because there's going to be assets. There's going to be other things that the business will put up that maybe the person won't want to put up. If the person goes to a bank for a business loan, one of the questions might be, are you willing to put your house up? That's one of the questions they may ask, and a lot of people are not willing to do that. On the other hand, if a business goes, they may ask you, do you want to put your building up? And a lot of people are more readily available to do that than they are their house. So there's ways of raising money in an incorporated business that a person doesn't normally have. Like I said, selling stock, taking on partners and things like that. Any questions on raising money? Now, there are various programs around that we use. We try to stay away from the lending institutions that want to take your houses and stuff like that. We try to get you the best deal possible based on what you're doing and what your needs are. Also, inheritance. If you're a sole proprietor and something happens to you, God forbid, the business ends because you are the business. Now, the assets of the business can be given to your family. If there's machinery, if there's things, like that could be passed along, that can be given to the family. But the business name and the business ends with you. Corporations, on the other hand, can be deeded, can be willed through when something would happen to you. It can go through a will to your children or to other members of your family, or to whomever you please, really, through that action. In a partnership situation, partnerships are two individuals that are doing business together. Jim's used this explanation quite a bit. If Jim and I are in business together and God forbid something happens to me, then Jim takes on a whole new set of partners, because my family, who would inherit my part of the business, is now his partners. There's various ways of working this to where they buy my side out, and Jim then owns the whole thing by himself. But that's stuff we can talk about later. So just be aware of how you incorporate or how you put together your incorporation for your business does affect inheritance. Is a limited liability company a better option? Yes and no. A limited liability company can be set up in a couple of different ways. It is a state designation. It's not a federal designation. Limited liability companies can be used tax-wise like a sole proprietor. Okay, or you can designate your limited liability company to be taxed like a corporation. Liability-wise, you're going to get most of the protections that any corporation would get. Limited liability companies are set up for a certain period of time. Most of the time, they have an ending date. You can change that ending date if you want to, but sometimes they're also set up to be perpetual, that they don't have to end, but there's just different ways of setting them up. But again, an LLC can be used like a sole proprietorship as far as tax purposes are concerned, if that's the way you choose. And this is one reason why they actually came up with this about 30 years ago now. Organizations like doctors, associations, CPAs, lawyers, things like that, the professional types, they were all running like a partnership would run. And I told you before, a partnership is just a group of individuals who are working together. The assets based on their percentage of ownership is theirs. Likewise, the liabilities based on their percentage of ownership is theirs. If they got sued for $1 million and you own 10% of the corporation, then you were liable for $100,000. And they kind of got tired of that. So they said, let's do a hybrid. Let's take some stuff from the corporation. Let's take some stuff from the partnership and we'll put them together and we'll get some liability protections. That way the company and their insurances and everything else is responsible for the lawsuits and the judgments. And we can still take the assets based on our percentage. Okay, so it was kind of a hybrid, and that's sort of how they did it. Okay, next we'll talk about registering your business. There's a couple things at the state of West Virginia. This first one is the Secretary of State's Business Startup Wizard. And this is a really good app if you do not know what type of incorporation you should possibly use. There's a series of questions, and you see the first one here is, do you want to form a new West Virginia company or register? You just answer. There's a series of questions, takes you about 5 minutes, 10 at the most, if you make decisions. And at the end of it, it's not going to come out and say, you definitely need to be an LLC, or you definitely need to be an S corporation, or you definitely need to be a C corporation. It's going to come out and say, there's an 85% chance that you need to be an S corporation based on the answers that you give it based on the answers you give the questions in the little loop there. I recommend everybody doing this before you would actually come to see someone like myself. That way, if you do have questions based on it says an LLC or an S, or what are the differences, we can sit and talk to you about them. But the Startup Wizard is a good place to start in registering your business. Okay, after you decided that I want to be sole proprietor, LLC, a sub S corporation, those are the main three that we normally deal with, rarely deal with C corporations. But then you go to the OneStop business portal. You can see that there is an account that you need to make right there. Once you make this account, it's going to start asking you a series of questions. You're going to need some information. You're going to have a federal employer identification number. You're going to have an NAICS code, which identifies your business to the IRS, or identifies your business based on the code from the IRS. You're going to need your Social Security number. You're going to need some other personal information when you start doing this registration online. Anybody can do this at their own pace. If you get 15 minutes into this thing and you got to go do something else, you can save it, come out, go do whatever you need to do later that night, come back, sit down, open it up. It should start you at the same point, and then you can continue on. It should take you somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes to complete. At the very end, they accept credit cards for any fees that you would need to pay the state of West Virginia in getting your registration to the Secretary of State. This portal does work with state tax, workers' comp, and all the other state agencies that you would need to file with. We have a question.
We do. How do you find your NAICS code?
Call me. Based on what you're doing, I know how to look them up pretty quick, so I can give them to you. That's not a problem. Any questions on the OneStop portal? Okay, Jim, do you want to talk about registering with the city?
There is a link that you can see. It's a QR code that takes you to registering your business with the city. First off, you have to have your state registration. And then when you go in at the city hall and see Robert Luther, you basically take that, and in the city application, it's short and sweet, and it's a $20 fee for filing your business license with the city. Now you may say, well, when do I need to have a city business license? Where are you conducting business? If you're outside in the county, that's not required. If you're in the city, it is required, or if you're doing business in the city. For example, if you're a roofing contractor and you're doing a project that's inside the city, replacing somebody's roof, then you have to have a business license. So if there's any questions on that, Harold or myself would be glad to answer that, but that's a quick answer. And then Robert Luther at the city will let you know. Now, if you're in some other community, I'd recommend, if you're in Princeton, to check with Sam Lusk or one of the folks there, Mike Webb, the city manager, or whatever locality you're in, look and see what regulations apply to you.
I have a question. Based on your food truck program, if someone is going to operate a food truck in the county and also in the city, would I also need a city license?
That's a very good question. You didn't tell me you was going to ask the hard ones today. That's one of the things that we want to try to flush out. I would think that they would need some kind of a license if they're going to be in the city for a special event or whatever. It's just like the food vendors at the Mountain Festival, things like that. They have to have some kind of a license. Either it's through the registration that they pay to the chamber or something like that, but there's going to have to be some format of a license. And that's part of what we're trying to flush out with incubator program. But I don't know what rules are in some of the other areas. For example, if you're down in McDowell County at Hatfield McCoy Trail and things like that, if you're in the county. So a lot of it we'll have to figure out case by case basis.
Okay. I knew that was going to come up, so. Jim and Savannah and Faith and Alex are all very good to work with. If you have any questions about the city, those guys can get you a lot of help. Okay, I told you we were going to talk about independent contractors. Independent contractors has been misused in a lot of ways in a lot of areas. There were several companies over in, I'm originally from McDowell County, and several companies over there got in trouble because they were a trucking company and they were calling their drivers independent contractors. And that's totally wrong. They were employees. But as an independent contractor, they were making them pay their own Social Security, their own taxes. They're making them just take up all the things that a company would normally have to pay for. Eventually, a lot of people took the companies to the labor board, and the companies got hit hard. But anyway, a doctor, a dentist, veterinarians, lawyers, writers, software designers, auctioneers, actors, musicians, those are all different types of independent contractors. Also, construction people are independent contractors. The biggest thing that I can tell you about an independent contractor is that they have their own business license. Basically, it would be, if you hire an independent contractor, it's two businesses that are doing a project together. And you have a contract with that other business to come in and do specific jobs at a specific time period. And you do not control them. Okay, based on that contract, they have free will to do whatever it is that you guys have agreed upon. Okay, so an independent contractor is another business. You have a business license. Okay. California came up with a test. And here's the test. A worker is free from the control and direction of the hiring entity in connection with the performance of the work. It's just what I said. Based upon what you guys agree to in the contract, it says that company is going to perform XYZ during the time period XYZ. And here are the penalties if they don't perform well or meet the schedule or whatever. It's based on whatever's in that contract, and you can't control it. The worker performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. Okay. Let's say I've got a contract to build a building, but I want somebody to do the drywalling because that's not something that I really do. So I'll build the frame and then I'll hire Jim's company to come in and do the drywalling. Now, he's got certain periods of time in his contract that he can use to put this drywall up, and it has to meet a certain standard, but I can't control when he starts. Jim may be a late starter. He may want to start at 12 o'clock in the day and work till midnight. Okay, he has free reign to do that. I can't control that. Can you see now? The worker is customarily engaged in independent established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature that is involved in the work performed. But again, I just hire him to do certain things. Any questions on an independent contractor? If you're thinking about hiring a bunch of employees and paying them like an independent contractor, don't. Just hire them as employees, pay the Medicare, pay the Social Security, pay the things you're supposed to pay, because if they do take you to the labor board, you're going to have to back up, pay the fines, and pay all the money that you took from them. Any questions on independent contractor? Okay, one of the things that we need to look at in a home-based business is the marketing strategy. And that's where someone like myself and Jim and others come into play. Basically, how are you going to find clients and how are you going to let clients find you? Okay, now that's kind of a rough, short and sweet way of saying marketing strategy, but that's about it. Okay, the steps that are involved is what we help you with. There are 5 P's that are associated with marketing strategy. The product, and underneath product, what is your unique selling proposition? How well do you know your product? I mean, seriously, have you really sat down and thought about it, not just from your perspective, but from the public's perspective? Jim talks about you may be the best plumber in the world. What are your unique selling points that you have that you can tell the public? This is why I am the best plumber in the world. Okay, I'm the guy you need to get. We've used the worm box. I've used that in the past. You can make a worm box that is got jewels and it's the prettiest worm box in the entire world. But does it have a unique selling proposition other than it's all dialed up, it's all jeweled up? What's going to make the customer's life better? What's going to make the customer want this product of yours or service of yours that they can maybe get somewhere else? Okay, let's talk to these ladies over here before the workshop started, and one of their relatives used to make a sandwich over in McDowell County, and the unique selling proposition to the sandwich, can I say what it was? It was called a liver dog. It was on a hot dog bun, had liver on it, and he had chili on this sandwich. And you might say liver, but there was something in that chili that was the unique selling point. There was something in that chili that just made that sandwich pop. And there are people from all over the country that came to get that sandwich and would still love to have it if they could get it. But that was the unique selling proposition. That's one that you're going to have to sit down and decide, what is my unique selling position? Okay. If it's a restaurant, what makes you different from everybody else? If you're going into the cabin business, what makes your cabins better? Is it location, cleanliness, services you provide, amenities that are inside the cabin, things you do for your campers? What makes you different from your competition? Okay, what makes if you're a restaurant, what makes your food better than the person down the street? If you're in a food truck, is your location better? Is something you do better than anybody else? The America's SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, has a national convention every year. And a few years ago, our convention was in Long Beach, California, right outside LA on the coast. And we were in a big convention center out there, and there were several local restaurants that were around us. And trust me, we tried every one of them that we possibly could. But the best food that I got in Long Beach, California, was a food truck that was set up on the street right outside the convention center. And he was selling tacos, burritos, and fajitas. And the food was delicious. So that was his unique selling point. I'm telling you, his food was great. Okay, enough on that. Any questions? I'll come back to it. What's your price? How are you going to charge? Are you going to charge the same thing your competition's charging? Well, how did you come to that number? Just looked at the board at McDonald's and said their cheeseburgers are, $5.95 a piece. So that's what I'm going to sell it for. Well, the problem is McDonald's expenses and your expenses may be two different things. McDonald's may be able to sell for a profit at $5.95, but once you come to someone like myself and we start running your profit and loss statement, your cheeseburgers may need to be $6.95 in order for you to make a profit. If you don't make a profit, you're not going to be in business for very long. So based on what your expenses are, based on what your needs are, as far as your own salary and things like that, then that's how we would help you set your price. Where are your products being sold? Are they being sold online, or do you have a storefront? What is your target market? Okay. A target market would be if you could create the ideal customer based on what you're doing, service or product. If you could create an ideal customer, what would they look like? Would they be male, female? How old would they be? Would they be married? Would they have any kids? What are their needs, hopes, and desires? Okay. That's how you're going to place your product or service, is based on who is your ideal customer. Now, once you kind of get an idea of who that ideal customer is in your head, there's various ways of finding out how many of those people are replicated throughout your area. And the biggest way is the census. You can go to the census and get a ton of information. You can put, I need people 18 to 45 years old who are married, 2 kids. And that'll pretty much pop up in the census. So there are ways of finding your target market. If it's online, these companies are tracking you with cookies and everything else. They know where you're at, what you're doing. They're tracking you through your cell phones. Marketing companies are tracking you through your cell phones. There's all kinds of ways that these people are tracking you to say, this is the type of person that you need to market to. Promotions, how are you going to let that potential customer know? Also with your promotions, you got to look at how you're marketing yourself. You got to look at, what do your logos look like? What's your story look like? You know, the little tab on the computer where it says about us. What's your story look like? How are you drawing people in by doing that? It's not just, hey, we got a great sale today. Everybody's got great sales. How are you going to draw them in? Okay. Once you get them drawn in, how are you going to keep them? And the fifth thing is just been added. Basically, it's people. Who are the people that are involved in your business? That's not just employees. That's your team. That's me and Jim. That's your banker. That's your insurance agent. That's your lawyer. That's your accountant. That is all the people that I call your team that's involved in helping you make your business a success. Okay. So these 5 things are a part of your marketing strategy. We can go over them. I'll tell you a little bit more later on about some things that the SBDC has available that would actually help get you some professional help on a situation like this. Any questions on the marketing? Okay. In creating an online presence, it's not just going out, buying a website at GoDaddy and throwing a few things on there. It has to be constructed. Excuse me, it has to be constructed. Your website has to be put together in a professional manner. It has to look good. It has to have all of the information. If you're selling products, it has to have all the information that you're going to need to draw these people in. Pictures, prices, ways to buy, which brings you back to cybersecurity. You know, is your transactions going to be secure over your website? If you're selling services, is there ways to show people what you've done in the past? You know, through pictures, through stories, through testimonials, through whatever. Okay. So you've got to get some professional help, and it's got to be done to where you have control over the website. It's not the people who put it together for you. You've got to be able to go in and make changes because it has to be fresh. It has to be up to date. You can't let it be stale. You can't let somebody come to your website and it's got product on there from 5 years ago with the wrong price. It's got to be up to date. And in that vein, Jim, would you like to tell them about your program?
Website development program.
Yes.
If you're a startup business inside the city of Bluefield, you can apply for 2 different things. Number one, there is the technical assistance program, or what we call TAP, and that's used for professional services, maybe an attorney to help you do an LLC or accounting. And you can go into the mybluefield.org, and under the resource tab, you'll see funding opportunities, and that's one. Number 2 is if you're a business physically located or going to be physically located in the city or already located, you can apply to get a new website for your business. Matter of fact, that we've been running that program for a while. We still have space for one that is wanting an e-commerce website where you're selling online. We can do updates to existing website or new informational static website. And Harold is spot on with the website. Too often people don't go to their own website to see what they've got out there, to see if it's changing and all the contact information and stuff is correct. When we started this program, actually a year and a half ago, Faith and Savannah did a deep dive on the businesses in the city that were mom and pop, not the national chains. Of the 85 businesses they looked at, 43% didn't have a website. So I don't use Facebook. We do at work, but I don't do it personally. I use LinkedIn. I like Instagram because of the pictures. So if I was going to find your business and I went and Googled you or said, hey, Siri, find me the closest dry cleaner. If you're not there on the internet, you could be losing the sale. So not against social media marketing. I think it's good, but I would not put all my eggs in one basket just with Facebook, Instagram. I like the website because there's still people that don't do Facebook. Mhm. The comment here, if you couldn't hear it, was using MapQuest or something like that when they go into an area. So it's not only having the website, but being registered so they can find you, whether it be in Google Maps or some other platform. And that's very important. So marketing is an aggressive tool that, and it can be sort of daunting task that you think, well, I've got to schedule all these things. Our folks here can help you, teach you how to schedule your social media posts. So you're not just stuck in front of a computer all day long, but also keep in mind your website and your marketing works for you 24/7. So make sure it's up to date. Don't just have on there, call for more information. Well, do you want that call at 10 o'clock at night when somebody's on your website? You need to provide them the information that they're looking for. And actually through this website program, there's classes tomorrow that are going to be taught for the folks that's in that program about what are the components of a good website. And just because you like it does not mean that everybody and their brother is going to like it and utilize your website. So those are just a couple programs we have. Those two are restricted for folks inside the city of Bluefield, but eventually we're hoping that some of those become regional as well.
So if there's any interest, get a hold of Jim, get a hold of Savannah or Faith or Alex, and they will be glad to help you out. Okay, here's one of the questions that I have gotten. Basically, I've been doing this for 23 years now, and I get it 3-4 times a year at least. What are the tax deductions for a home-based business? And I'm going to try to go over this. I am not a tax expert. I know enough about taxes to really get you in trouble. I always tell you to consult with your bookkeeper and consult with your CPA. Those are your best references, and those guys are a part of your team. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. If I can't, I'll have to find out from my people, my CPAs and bookkeepers, the answer to your question. But your local people is probably the best way to find an answer at this point. Okay, 2 kinds of deductions. The normal deduction that a business can take, and everybody's going to get these slides, and this is also going to be available on YouTube after we're finished. So if you're taking notes and you miss something, you can come back to it. Like I said, the normal deductions that every business can take, and the other deductions that you must qualify for as a home business. Okay. Is your home the principal place of you doing business? Is it the place where you pay the bills, you manage the finances, you talk to employees, you talk to suppliers, you talk to customers? Is there a place in your home that is your place to do business, your principal place to do business? Okay, now I stress that. Is there a place set aside in your home to do business? Because it has to be regular and exclusive. Okay, regular means on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly, not just occasionally that you're doing business. Are you in there? Are you doing something? Okay, exclusive. Your home office cannot be used for anything else at any time. This includes your personal belongings and also using the family dining table for Thanksgiving. So if you're on the family dining table and you got your computer set up and you're chunking away, and sometimes the kids come in and sit down and eat, or you move the computer and all your stuff for Thanksgiving dinner and you have dinner there, it's not exclusive. It has to be exclusive for your business. So there needs to be an area in your house, an old room that you're not using, and that's not usually something we have, but there's some place that you've set aside that's all you do in that room is business. Okay, so regular and exclusive. Once we've decided that, then there's a couple of ways to calculate the deductions for that space in your home. Number one, the normal method, that's actually calculating actual expenses. And number two is a simplified method, which we'll talk about just in a second. Under the normal method, a couple things you got to do. You've got to find out what are the actual expenses directly related to the square footage in your home that you're using for that business. Okay, business supplies, the equipment that you're using, the furniture that you're using, the things that are directly related to the business in that square footage of your home. If your home is 3,000 square feet and you're using 300 square feet, then that's 10% of your home that you're using. Okay, whatever's in that 10% is direct expenses. Okay, the indirect expenses are, and this is the questions I always get, can I deduct my home insurance? Can I deduct part of my utilities? Can I deduct, things that generally happen in a home situation? And the answer is yes. You would deduct it by the square footage of what you're using in the home. If you're using, like I said, 10%, then 10% of the utilities, 10% of the water bill, 10% of the garbage bill, 10% of the insurance, which we're going to talk more about that in a second. But 10% of those types of things could be deducted for the business. Okay, so two types. Direct expenses can be totally deducted. The indirect expenses can be percentage-wise deducted. Okay, and they give you a list there. Mortgage interest, insurance cost, rent, repairs and maintenance, utilities, and other expenses. And there are forms which you have to fill those out. In the simplified method, like I said, if you're using 300 square feet or up to 300 square feet in the home, you can take $5 a square foot and get $1,500 deductions in your taxes. You don't need to keep track of all the expenses, home expenses rather. You could just take this one simple deduction. Your direct expenses are still deducted. But in the simplified calculation, you don't have to keep track of how much electricity was my electricity bill, how much was my water bill, how much was all those different bills. You could just take a standard $1,500 and be done with it on the indirect method. Okay, any questions? Again, there are some limits. If your income, the gross income from your business is less than the total business expenses, you just didn't sell a whole lot. You bought computers and chairs and desks, and your electricity bill and your water bill and all that stuff add up to more than what you actually sold or made, sold gross income, then there's going to be some limits on what you can deduct. And those percentages are kind of complicated, and your bookkeeper, tax person, CPA, whoever it is, they know how to go in and calculate those things. You're still going to get some percentage. You just may not get the max that we just talked about there. Okay. For the actual expenses method, there's a form 8829 from the IRS that you would need to include for the tax return. If you use the simplified method, then it's Schedule C, line 30. So based on which method you use, then that's how you're going to file it on the taxes. And you can see on the very bottom, circled, seek the advice of your CPA or bookkeeper. Seek the advice of your tax person. This is just something to give you some reference points to that says, yes, these things are deductible. Check with the tax person to make sure that it's filed right, or you can to take all the maximum deduction that you have out there. Any questions on taxes? Nothing from the internet? Sure.
Ask my question on here so our online folks can hear. So what if there was an individual who did not have a lot of home space, like they could not allocate a separate space for the business? Is that going to hinder them from starting a home-based business, or is it just for tax purposes?
That's tax purposes. It doesn't hinder them. Again, you're not going to get the deduction for the square footage. But if you have a computer desk that you run everything from, then yes, you still get some deductions. You still can get some deductions. But again, that's where I tell everybody, talk to the CPA, talk to the experts. Okay. There's 2 or 3 different ways you can actually get some insurance for your home-based business. And again, back to the liabilities when we were talking about incorporations. This is one way of reducing your risk for sole proprietorships and even corporations. I always try to tell people to talk to an independent agent. An independent agent is one who can pull from many different companies and get you the best deal. Other agents are tied specifically to Nationwide or in State Farm or Allstate or any of those other companies. And those guys normally have criteria that they go by when they start looking at startup businesses. Most of them require you to be in business for a certain period of time before they even start trying to look at you. So anyway, try to get with an independent agent and they'll get you probably the best deal that they possibly can. Auto accidents is another thing on insurance for home-based. In case you have to deliver something, or in case you have to provide a service somewhere and you take the company truck, or God forbid you have an employee that takes the company truck and kind of drinks a little bit or something else, you are responsible for any accident or anything that they would get into. Damage to company-owned property on your property. You need some insurance for that. So anyway, let's take a look at the different types of coverages that you can get. On the homeowner policy endorsement, basically you already have, hopefully you have insurance on your home. And all you're going to do is get a rider, or sometimes they call it a floater, to add protections to your existing limits, your existing coverage limits. Okay. In other words, if you do have liability protection in your homeowner's policy for somebody who comes on your property and gets hurt, but it's only $50,000, if you get a rider, then that may go up to 100,000, 500,000, whatever you choose. That's best for you, whatever you think your coverages need to be. It's basically called a liability endorsement. The second way for the second type of coverage is an in-home business policy. So this is going to cover the business aspects of whatever you're conducting in your home. Okay, and provide general liability for the company. Notice those are kind of separate. You've got property type stuff that you're covering. You've also got the liability stuff that you're covering. Again, back to the auto accident, back to you going out. Let's say you're running a a landscaping company out of your home and you go on somebody's property and you're doing something and all of a sudden things just go total crazy and you've messed up their property, the landscape, the wall fell in and hit the house and now they're suing you to fix the house and fix their yard and fix everything else. You got to have some general liability coverage in order to protect you and your personal assets. So anyway, this type of coverage, like business income, your valuable papers, your accounts receivable, plus the general liability, they say is around $300 a year. I haven't seen a liability policy that low. Most liability policies are in the $1,000 to, I've seen them as high as $4,000 and $5,000 range based on the type of coverage and type of business that you're doing. But I would say just to protect your business income, your papers, your accounts receivable, and stuff that's inside your home, probably $300 on this in-home business policy would be about right. Then there is the business owner's policy, which is totally separate. It's a commercial package designed specifically for your business. And again, it's going to include the commercial property, business income, general liability. They say typically around 12. Yeah, probably around 12. But again, it's based on the type of business you're doing, the types of liability that you're incurring. Are you on the road a lot? Are you doing some dangerous stuff? If you're running a timbering company out of your house, well, your liability policy is going to be a whole lot more than if you're running a secretarial service out of your house. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. She said if she lives in an apartment and has a spare bedroom that she's using, should she notify her landlord? And yes, ma'am, because sometimes the apartment building won't let you run a business out of your house. Even in a city, if say you're living in Bluefield, you need to check with the zoning board in that city to make sure you can actually run a business out of your house. Because some sections, they won't let you do that. So you need to check with the zoning people. But again, whatever you do need to look into some type of insurance to protect your assets in the business and also to protect the liability that you may incur in the business. Any questions on that? Other types of coverage. The auto insurance is self-explanatory. You do need to inform, if you're using the personal auto, you do need to inform your insurance company that you're using it for business. They're going to ask you the percentage of time that you're using it for the business, how many miles, extra miles you're driving, things like that. So they can put some additional coverages on your already insurance policies. Errors and omissions, lawyers, CPAs, engineers, things like that, they make mistakes and they get sued for it. So errors and omissions, that would help cover them. It's like liability. And if you have employees, workers' comp. If you don't have employees, business owners are not covered under workers' comp, or can opt out of workers' comp. I suggest if you do, check into something like AFLAC or some type of disability insurance, because if you're running this business, we always tell people, if you're running a side business, don't count on that income from that business into your daily budget, monthly budget, okay? But they always do. You get to living off of your other income plus your business income, and that's how you create your lifestyle. What happens if you do get an auto accident, you do get hurt? Bills go on. You got to pay them somehow. So you're going to need some type of disability insurance in order to cover not only your personal bills, but also the business bills. So look into something like that. And again, consult your local independent insurance agent. Questions? Okay, way back when we first started this, about an hour ago, I said you got to establish a work-life balance. You've got to create the space for your business. You've got to set some hours for that business and stick to them. Should underline that, stick to them. When you do the business, don't just sit there in a pair of jogging pants or shorts and a t-shirt. Dress professional. Set a professional attitude and a professional tone. It will be reflected in your work. Set measurable goals. Where do you want this business to go? Do you always want to stay there and it's just a little side hustle and you're making a few dollars a month? Well, a few dollars a month may be a goal. So set a goal, set your goals. What do you want out of this business? Okay, treat it like any other thing that you would go at. Set the goals and then set the ways that you're going to get to those goals. Goals and objectives. Take breaks. During the pandemic, and we were all kind of shut in at the home, and a lot of us still are. When the state told us to stay home, we were still working. We still had our computers. We were still doing things. And you could literally wake up, put your feet on the floor, go to the computer, turn it on, sit there for 15 hours a day and work, and then cut the computer off and maybe go back to bed if that's what you wanted. You could literally do that, but you got to learn to take breaks. You got to learn to get up, rest your eyes, rest your mind, rest your person, get away from it for a little bit. I know you have deadlines. I know you have things that you have to do. You have to meet demands from your customers, but you also have to take care of yourself. You can't get burnout on this thing. There's going to be demands on your time. There's going to be demands if you have children. There's going to be demands if you have older parents. There's going to be demands from your spouse if you're married. So there's going to be demands on your life, and you've got to be a very good scheduler in order to meet all these demands. Okay, so learn how to take breaks. Learn how to take what I call mini mind vacations. You can get up, walk away, close your eyes, pretend you're at the beach, pretend you're in the mountains, pretend you're on vacation for 10 minutes. Just rest your mind, get away from the business. Any questions? Okay, in Moby, and you see on the top right hand corner, some of these slides have said Moby. This is the type of material that you're going to get because it was taken directly from Moby. I'm not a part of the city of Bluefield. Jim and I work together. I work for the state of West Virginia, Small Business Development Centers. And, but we work together and trying to help clients. And we stress wholeheartedly that you put together a business plan. We stress wholeheartedly that you talk with Jim about your idea and get his opinion, talk with me and get my advice. And again, do the business planning. Okay. One of the things that I'm going to tell you to do, not because he's sitting here, but I would tell you if you come to see me, this is a program that you probably need to do, especially if you're thinking about doing any type of business planning. Because this thing steps you through each individual section and helps you understand what those different sections are. I'm here if you have questions. Jim's here if you have questions. Savannah, Faith, Alex, all of them are here if you have questions. I don't know everything, but I know I can ask people and I can find out what those answers are. But this is the type of material that you get at the end of each section, the do's and don'ts. And this is one of Jim's favorite things to look at, because it tells you, do these things, specialize in a single product or service to start out with. Don't be, I'm telling you, I talk to people sometimes and they have such wild imaginations and they go off in 50 different tangents all at one time. That doesn't get you started, and that doesn't get you down the road. I'm not going to tell you that you can't do those things down the road, but you've got to get started. So anyway, concentrate on a single product or service. Use the template that they're going to provide for you. Understand the independent contracting laws. If you have questions, further questions on those, I have some IRS publications that I can get you, and I have some other information that I can get you for independent contractors. The biggest thing with an independent contractor, like we said, is you are a business. You have a license from a state, and you are contracting with another business to do a certain thing. Create a presence online, website. Jim has his program. We also have something called a subject matter expert program right now that we could possibly get you some help with your marketing and your branding and other stuff like that. They do websites, not all the time, but if it's a special occasion and they really need it, then they will do a website. They also do some accounting stuff if your accounting's messed up. Cybersecurity, again, Jim's got the workshop online. There's a cybersecurity person we can put you with. There's many different aspects of business. If you need it, then maybe I can put you with a subject matter expert and get you some paid for by the state of West Virginia help from a professional company that does it for a living. Anyway, you can see the do's. I'm not going to read them all to you, and then you can see the don'ts. Don't compete with your employer, because you may make them mad and they may fire you. Check with the employer sometimes and see if they will let you do a side hustle or a home-based business or something like that. In the state of West Virginia, I have to get approved if I want to go out and do something on my own. So check with your employer, make sure it's okay with them. Do not conduct your business on your employer's time. They're not going to like that. Don't be in a rush to get started. I just recently helped a place over in Princeton. I'll withhold the name, but it's getting ready to have a grand opening. And I've been working with them for a year. We've been going through the planning process. We've been going through the financing process. We've been going through the startup process. And that was getting all their marketing stuff and logos and story and website and getting all of that stuff. And it's basically taken over a year to get these people up and going, but they're set. A lot of people want to get online, get the business license today, open up the doors tomorrow, and be a millionaire next week. And it's hard to do. It's extremely hard to do. Don't think it's too late to start. It's never too late to start if you have a dream. Doesn't matter your age. It's your willingness to put the time in, to put everything in that it needs to make this business successful. So no matter what your age, you could be 15, 16 years old. You could be 70 years old. Whenever you think is the right time, then we'll work with you and we'll help you get your business up and going. And we're not there just to get it going, but we'll stay with you and we'll help you. If you have questions, we'll be there to analyze. We'll be there to give suggestion. We'll be there to help you. Again, I'm not going to read all this to you. You can read them. Do you have any questions? Does online have any questions on the do's and don'ts? Okay. Who wants to be the tester? Now this, again, this is the type of thing that you will experience with Moby. If you want to do the Moby course, at the end of each section, if you want a certificate, there is a test, 10 questions, and you have to score 80 on each section in order to get your certificate. So Jim's going to go over the test with you.
Sorry, I had some technical difficulties there. I always enjoy being in Harold's classes because it makes me think, even though I've started businesses, one specifically from scratch and different things like that, but I always think about different things that I can do and expand. Harold mentioned the test. This is the exact test for the home-based business module. So we're just going to do this together. And if anybody online wants to chime in, what are the benefits of a home-based and freelance business include? Don't be bashful. What's the answer?
All of the above.
All the above. That's exactly right. Number two, it's a good idea to quit one's job before preparing to launch your new business. True or false?
False.
False. Exactly. Which of the following does not contribute to a healthy work-life balance? Dress for success, set goals, create a specific space for your business, be available and working at all hours of the day.
Be available and working at all hours of the day.
Okay. See, a lot of these just are straightforward common sense questions, but they make you think a little bit about it, because I know a business, and I hope they don't mind me saying this. It was Starry Eyes Media in Princeton. And I asked Brandon one time, they were working from home, what made him want a brick and mortar location? And he told me, he said, every time I walked by my dining room and looked in there, that was where we worked. And I thought, okay, I've got work to do. So he wanted a buffer so he could establish that I'm at work or I'm at home. And so sometimes you need that. The term gig economy means an economy in which temporary and flexible employment is common. True or false?
True.
True. That's right. What kind of business would be a poor home-based business?
A business that needs a lot of storage.
There we go. Is it possible to turn a hobby into a home-based business?
Yes.
True. We can hear the person on the internet, but the person on the internet can only hear me here. So we're getting some answers from the folks in the room as well. I'm just repeating what they say. Fill in the blank. A home-based business usually has blank initial investment than a regular business.
Lower.
All right, I hear the word lower. That's right. Because you think about this, you know, there was a young man we were working with that wanted to start a business, and the first thing he did was go rent space. And I said, you never rent space until you need space. You start that business at your kitchen table or wherever if you can. But then all of a sudden he signed a lease paying $650 a month. And I said, you know, you already got yourself backed in the corner. So the home-based business allows you to start at a lower. A freelance business is a home-based business with only one employee, you, who takes on contract work for other businesses, organizations, and individuals. True. Challenges of a home-based business include controlling risk and liability, ensuring you have the right license, permits, and permissions, understanding the rules for business expenses and deductions, all the above.
All of the above.
All right. An important part of your home-based business is creating an online presence.
True.
True. Now I'm going to give you a quick example of the My Own Business Institute. For the person online, can you see Moby? Are they seeing what I'm seeing? Okay, good deal.
I can see it.
Now you're seeing more of the back office. It looks a little bit different when you're the student. So we have two modules. We have starting a business, the My Bluefield Small Business Success Center Entrepreneurs Bootcamp, starting a business, and business expansion. So just for the sake of time, I want to show you a couple of what these look like. There's a class on deciding on a business, the business plan, home-based business or freelance business, which is basically what you just went through. And with the questions, buying a business or franchise, financing the business, business organization, license, permits, insurance, accounting and cash flow, controlling cost, e-commerce, communicating tools, selling, developing negotiating skills, marketing, Then you have an exam. If you make an 80 or above on each one of these and the final exam, then you can graduate with a certificate from Santa Clara University. But there's also electives that you can take if you want. Choosing a business location. You need to think about that when you're doing a home-based business. If you're going to have a lot of walk-in traffic, what Harold's getting at with zoning, that may not be allowed in a R1 residential area, because you don't want cars down the street and things like that. It may be against the zoning. But if you're doing certain things to where you're going to be beating and banging and manufacturing, you don't want to do that in your neighborhood as well. So you got to think about choosing a business location that fits you. Managing employees, handling problems, making ethical decisions, business storytelling. We talked about that earlier. You got to tell that story. Adapting in the midst of change, and in microfinance. So one that I always like to show, and Harold talked a little bit about it earlier, is business organization. So let's go into one of the classes. So typically this will take you 30 to 45 minutes, and you'll see here's the objectives, but there's also videos that go along with the classes. You see that top one? It's the Three Little Pigs story taught with the big bad wolf being liability. And when it hums, huffing and puffing at your front door, what does it do to you if you're a sole proprietor, a partnership, or an LLC? And then there's other short videos that supplement this section, okay? But let's just quickly go through. If you're going to print this, it would be probably 5 to 7 pages. Should you have partners? Harold gave a good example earlier, the pros and cons of having a partner. He also told me a story one time about a dad and a daughter that went into grocery store business together. One was going to do a certain part of the business and one was going to do another. So the father didn't like the pricing that the daughter had on the products. So he went in and changed it. Well, the daughter got mad because that was her role. And so she changed them back. Well, the next thing you know, they got into a fuss and nobody was talking to either one. So, having an agreement in writing, because a lot of times when you start, if you're going to have a partner, you need to have an agreement in writing, because to be honest, there's going to be things that's going to come up that can cause a fraction or a friction in the partnership. Here's pros and cons of having a partner. The cons. Number one there, you will have to share the rewards if the business is successful. That's a given. But a lot of times, if that's not in writing, it may be misunderstanding there. Where's liability? Where's it come from? What type of business is right for you? Harold did a good job of going over those. He even gets into what the difference between a C Corp and an S Corp, and then a benefit or social purpose corporation. Most people have never heard of those. It goes in a little bit about that. Nonprofit, steps you should take to organize. And again, I'm going through very quickly. Professionals can help, just to show you that it's only 5 to 7 pages. It will take you 30, 45 minutes to go through it. And then the do's and don'ts that he mentioned earlier. And each section has do's and don'ts. So I would highly recommend you do this. Matter of fact, if you're interested in our food truck incubator program, this will be a requirement. Now, if you're proficient and you say, I already know this, prove it by going and taking the exam. You make an 80 or above, that's good. We just want to make sure that we set people up for success. Think about when your parents bought you a bicycle, whoever bought you your first bicycle. The last thing that they did was probably put you on it, take off the training wheels, and ship you down a crowded street, because that's a recipe for a problem. Matter of fact, that's how I taught my sister to ride a bike. I took her up the top of the hill, put her on it, and got her started down through there and just let her go. It's a wonder my sister still speaks to me today. Thank goodness she does. But that's not the right way. It's to have those trainer wheels and the support. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to tell you how to run your business or anything like that, but we do want to make suggestions how to make you stronger. These classes, I took them myself back when COVID first started, because I would not recommend them if I hadn't done it myself. And there's good information. Matter of fact, I missed some questions on the exams, just because it's a little bit tricky sometimes. That does not mean you're going to be successful, but it can help you better off to be prepared. But with the food truck incubator that we're wanting to do, if funded, first thing will be the culinary part with food handling and those kind of certifications. Then you're going to go through these classes, these 15. Won't take you long. You can knock it out in a weekend if you want to. Then you're going to do a business plan. The business plan will be while you've got that truck for those 10 events or 60 days. How much is it going to cost to buy food based off your menu? If you're doing hot dogs and chili, that's one thing. But if you're doing ribeye steak with some kind of a Philly cheesesteak, that's different. So you got to look at what's kind of funding you've got to have and what your price point is, what your menu is going to be. And then after you've done all that and have your business plan for that with Harold's help, then you can be turned loose with that truck. Then we want to do a post-business plan. So if you want to start that business, then you'll drill down, okay, what was the revenue that you made? So you can do projections on if you have to borrow money to buy a truck and things like that. We have a question in the back.
So the question is, will you guys help us create a business plan?
We would love to. We will help you create a business plan. Is it for the incubator or food truck incubator or any? We will. Matter of fact, we want to set you up for success. If the grant's funded, we're going to have 2 brand new Cadillac version. They won't literally be the Cadillac, but when I say Cadillac, my age group means that's top of the line. And so it will be the Cadillac of food trucks. Alex has spec'd them out. So it'll be very nice. We want to set you up for success. And so we want to go through that. And a lot of times I play devil's advocate. If you don't know what that is, I'll ask you the questions that sometimes are a little bit tough. Tell you a quick funny story. When I was a kid, I liked to eat peanut butter, mayonnaise, and pickle or banana sandwiches. And I've had peanut butter, mayonnaise, and sweet pickle. So when people look at me, it's like, man, that sounds nasty. So if my food truck, I was going to go out and those are my 2 key dishes. Guess what? I'm going to get 1 or 2 customers. So just because you like your menu, you need to test that. And that's part of what this process is. But the business plan, yes, we will definitely help on that because we want to set you up for success.
And that's what I do.
That's
I do
Harold's
business planning and
he's the business king guru. Good deal. Matter of fact, if you're interested in the food truck incubator, you don't have to wait till we're funded. You could actually get some of these prerequisites done now so that when we are funded, we can hit the ground running. And even if we're not funded, which I think we will be, even if we're not funded and somebody has to try this on their own, we still want to help you. We want to set you up for success because the last thing we want to do is see somebody go out of business or waste their life savings. If somebody come in the doors here and said, look, I want to start a typewriter repair shop, we're going to talk them off the ledge and say, please don't do that. And we call those a non-start. So it's okay if you have an idea and it may not be the right idea. Maybe we've got to tweak it, whatever it may be. Now, if you're doing antique typewriters, that may be different. But if you just want to open up a typewriter repair store, you're gonna struggle. What other questions do we have? These classes are free. They're online, self-paced. They're not like a typical college class that you have semesters or whatever. You can do them at your pace. Yes, ma'am.
Say you had your state license, all that. If you work in one county, maybe planning on going to another, maybe a day, how long does it take you to acquire a new permit in different counties?
All right. The question is if you have your state license and you're doing a food truck and you're going to an event in a different locality, how long does it take to get those licensed at locality? Typically it can be, in our case, it's same day kind of thing. And so a lot of it that's one of the things we're going to do when we sit down with somebody. If they're from Wyoming County, for example, that's one of our partners in this. There's 11 counties that's in this program. We'll sit down with the folks in Wyoming County to find out what the rules are. Because yes, they've got to have the state and the food handlers, but there may be something specific that they have that we don't have. I'll give you an example. There was a lady that wanted to start a food truck business in Blacksburg. And this is probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And she didn't do it because in Blacksburg, you could set up anywhere you wanted, but if somebody complained, you'd have to move the truck. Well, do you want to spend that kind of money? And then all of a sudden you may not have a place over there. And that's a high market because of Virginia Tech. And so she decided not to do that just because she was afraid there wouldn't be protections. So, looking at fairs, festivals, and events and things like that, Holiday of Lights is one I think would be neat in Christmas. If you went to the Holiday of Lights last year, odds are you waited in line to get in. Okay, I wait in line a lot more patiently if I've got something to eat. So I think having the food truck there on the entrance could be good. And our goal is to help people set up for success. We're not going to stick them out on the side of 52 somewhere that nobody stops by. We want to put them in places to where they can actually do business. There is a food truck festival in Princeton, June 25th. And, but we probably won't be funded by then. And then, we'll probably know. Right. And you're exactly right. You can see, how that they do it. And then who's to say we don't create our own food truck event sometime in the region, Bridge Day, which I don't remember when that is over at River Gorge.
It's October. It's
October.
October.
Okay. And then you got Oktoberfest here in Bluefield. You got different things. You got, some of the Hatfield McCoys, they have different events and that. So, looking at that, and an average food truck in the United States, Alex's research, the revenue is $250,000 to $500,000 a year. Now, it doesn't mean that, Harold's example earlier, you start a business, you're a millionaire next week. It's not going to work that way. But also there's a lot of work with this, especially if you have a high-end menu with the food prep and things like that. So there may be some that go through this program and walk away saying, this is too hard. I don't want to do this. And the good thing about that, and we're fine if that's the case, is all of a sudden we have saved them from investing their life savings into something that they're going to hate doing or quit their regular job to do this. Matter of fact, one of the people we're talking with is a school teacher wanting to be part of this food truck program. So what she's going to do is try to get into where she can utilize the truck during the summer so they can try it then versus her quitting her paying job. I think that's smart. Any other questions?
To add on to what you asked earlier about the licenses, if you have a state license and you're not in an incorporated area, you can operate as long as you have your food handler's card and things like that. Once you go into a city limits, that's when you need to get a permit from the city. But outside the city limits, you're okay. The other thing is,
Oh, that's right. You told me.
You guys being, I guess, originally from McDowell. Okay. There's, in the city of Welch, they're actually starting up several festivals that used to go on. The Fall Festival, they're bringing that back around the Labor Day weekend. They're having the big barbecue thing that is going to expand this year. Veterans Parade, that's the oldest Veterans Parade in the nation. There's various things that the city of Welch is starting to do that they haven't done in the past, or had let go in the past, rather.
Matter of fact, we're meeting Friday with folks in Welch talking about partnerships and things like that. But this food truck incubator is not just about Bluefield. Bluefield does not need to be inundated with food trucks. This is a regional approach for the 11 counties that's in what's called Region 1 and Region 4. So this includes Monroe County and some of the areas up in Fayetteville and places like that. We appreciate your time. I know it was a lot to cover. What I suggest is to digest this. If you're serious about a home-based business or any other aspects, we'd be glad to talk with you. You can go to mybluefield.org. You can look under the resources tab for a lot of the information we've covered, our contact information. And then also, Stan and Faith want me to remind that we want you to take a survey to let us know if this met your needs. Be brutally honest, don't candy coat it. We want to know because it's very important to us that we do a good job in trying to meet your needs and serving our next generation of entrepreneurs. So we thank you. Anything closing, Harold?
No, Jim said it all. If you have any questions, just get a hold of us. If you need my services, it is incorporated into that first slide when you saw the team. So get a hold of me. I do, like we said, I do business planning, loan packaging, and some other things to try to help a business. We try to be whatever a business needs. So thank you guys for attending and appreciate everything, all the questions.
And for those of us joining on Zoom, you can either scan the QR code with your cell phone or tap that link in the chat box. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can also scan that QR code with your cell phone camera or check out the link to take the survey in the description box.